What's up, everybody? I'm back. Will Brown, husband, father, innovator, entrepreneur, black conservative. It's been a while since I've been on YouTube, almost 3 months, I think. January, maybe even 4 months. December was my last post. Actually, November, I believe, was my last post. I've been busy. I've been busy working on projects, getting stuff done, really digesting this whole new Trump economy and Trump movement. And I'm just so happy and elated on the direction things are going. And I wanted to hop on today to kind of go over a topic that I want to touch on that I think may help shed some light on where we are with Trump's tariff plan and what I think the reason why it's important that we really stand behind him and support him in this whole concept of going against the world with tariffs. So the topic really is about equality. And I'm going to give a thesis. I'm going to say equality is actually a war tactic primarily used by the liberal left. It is a psyop, and I'm going to go into that. So today's video is going to be a little bit more in depth. I'm really cook on this one, so it's going to be a more of a longer form. So I hope you stay around to the end because I'm going to get to a very poignant point that I think is going to be something to really think about. But what I was saying is equality, I believe, has been used for many, many years as a war tactic or a psyop or a strategy by the liberal left elite. And what do I mean by that? Think about how they use equality, even in just this last go around with the election and everything. What was the liberal left fighting for? Equality, women's rights, like women don't have any rights, transgender rights, right? Equality across the board for women, transgender. We want the right to kill our babies. We want the right to mutilate our children and put them through some psychological crap to believe that they're something that they're not when it comes to their gender. Equality is never equal because what happens is you take the rights, the liberties, the ideology, the prosperity from one group and give it to another. And that's how equality has been utilized forever in time, in modern history. And I'm going to give an example of that. And a very good example that I think will help uh, give a picture of that concept is the pre civil rights movement. During the pre civil rights movement, in an era of segregation, and this isn't to get racial in any form or fashion, but during an era of segregation, whites were on one side, blacks were on another side, right? Whites had their own economic bubble that they lived in. Blacks had their own economic bubble that they lived in. And what and it was a self-contained bubble, right? Within each bubble, specifically for the black bubble, we had our own businesses, our own hotels, our own restaurants, our own railroads, our own transportation bus companies. We had to do everything for ourselves because we had to be reliant and self-sufficient on our own within our own uh, ecosystem. And blacks like to use a phrase, how the dollar needs to bounce within the black community 3 or 4 times, which it doesn't do that at all these days. But in those days, it did, and it was designed that way. It wasn't even a tactic. It is what it was because we lived in our own bubble because we didn't have access to this uh, white economy over here, if you will. And we actually were doing very well. blacks were we were at our most prosperous time in history, pre-civil rights. We had the most millionaires per capita at that time. They would probably be classified as billionaires today, but we had the most millionaires per capita during that time frame, right? We were the most traditional, we were a very traditional group of people when it came to family values. So what ended up happening? The liberal left came up with this idea of equality. Black people don't have access to the white economy over here. And the liberal left and the elite liberal left, the powers that be, wanted access of resources from the black community. That's where this whole concept came from. So when I say equality is not equal, what it does is it takes from one group of people and give to another group of people. So let me rephrase that a little bit more. Um, what it is let's look at it like this. Black people did not use critical thinking when it came to this whole civil rights push. The liberal elite, white and black, you can even say the boule black echelon, did not want to have so many successful black people. Unfortunately, this is just what it is. This is a history lesson. You can go and deep dive into this. I'm not getting into the history today because I want to, touch on the broader picture, but I'm just trying to give a concept of why we are where we are today and why it's dangerous if we are not paying attention to what Trump is doing to support what him and the administration is trying to do. So I always use this as a very good analogy. Over here in the white economy, you have an ice company. Over here in the black economy, you have an ice company, right? This company stays busy. This company stays busy. This man employs 30 30 family men. This man employs 30 family men. What black people were sold pre-civil rights was that this ice company produces colder ice than this company. So you need to start supporting this company. Come buy your ice over here because this ice is much colder than this ice. And we were, for whatever reason, tricked into believing that that was the case. This ice is colder, so I'm going to stop spending my money over here because I would prefer to have access to this ice. So what ends up happening, right? This ice company, the black-owned ice company, now does not have the sufficient revenue to support the business anymore. And what ends up happening? The 30 family men that this company employed, he has to lay them off, right? And in the, let's say, best picture of things, right, this man has to now go find another job, which means he may have to travel further outside of his community to go find a job if he's able to find one, right? Even back then, I mean, women really didn't work, but let's say the woman had to now leave the home when she was a homemaker. She raised the children. She now had to leave the home to go help support the household, which meant that, they had to either pay for daycare. I don't know how daycare actually was in those days, or now put the children in public school and didn't have that influence over their children, which was an intentional breakdown of the traditional family values. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario, which was a more prevalent scenario, was, hey, this man could no longer find reasonable employment, so he had to resort to crime or crimes of poverty to support his family, to put food on the table. And unfortunately, back in those days, which they do today, those crimes were harshly punished, which put those men in jail. They incarcerated them, which was now another intentional construct of breaking down the traditional family, right? Or those men even went on drugs for depression, drugs, and became alcoholics. And All of that was due to the concept of equality. Hey, black people, you're not being equal because you don't have access to this cold ice company. That's what happened. So that was you know, a small example, but magnify that against, other types of industries and businesses that were self-sufficient within the black community. They ended up shrinking and going out of business because it was a wealth extraction from the black community to the white community. So once again, equality isn't equal. It takes from one group of people to give to another, but they disguise it as you're being unjustly treated because you don't have access to this. When retrospect, you didn't need access to this. I'm not saying I'm all for segregation or anything, but I'm just trying to give a perfect analogy on why it worked back then. You know, what people really need to realize is the black man and the white man are more closely aligned in values than the media portrays it to be. Even back in those days, white people over here doing their thing, black people over here doing their thing. It is what it is, right? They didn't need to be bothered. But once somebody gave them the idea that, hey, you're being mistreated because you don't have access to this, when you never needed access to it in the first place. So, how does that tie into today's day and age? Well, let's fast forward, post civil rights, right? America, well, actually, before then, we going into World War One and World War II, we always were considered isolationists, right? America was at its strongest when we were isolationists. We had to do for self. We had our own industries, our own manufacturing, all within our own country. And we were the strongest economically that we have ever been. And it was not until recently, with the introduction of NAFTA and the free trade agreement and these globalist ideas, that said, hey, America, you don't need to be isolationist anymore, right? What about the rest of the world? It's not equal that you guys have all the resources here and there's no fair trade amongst the world. Once again, this idea of equality is the reason why we entered into this whole idea of global economic prosperity. But what did it do for us over the long term? What did it do for America over the long term? Well, it ended up exporting and shipping our jobs, our manufacturing jobs from America and shipping them overseas for cheaper labor, right? Once again, this is the same concept with pre-civil rights. We were in our own bubble, doing our own thing, existing very well within our own ecosystem. And then once again, we were sold a bad bill of goods of an idea that, hey, why don't you share with the rest of the world and be equal? But what it has done over time is it has depleted America of all of its resources, right? The only reason why we are standing today is because we are a strong economic spending power base, but we can't maintain this much longer. So if you really peep what the Trump administration is doing with tariffs, it takes guts and balls to do what he's doing. I'm telling you, because if somebody stood up back in, the early 1960s, pre-civil rights, and said, hey, we don't need this thing called integration. We're doing a-okay over here by ourselves. Once again, I'm not trying to say, hey, I'm all for segregation. I'm just trying to give an example of how we were sold an idea that we weren't being fairly treated because we didn't have access to something that we actually never needed access to, right? Because in those days, black people were an economic monolith. We were our own little economic monolith. So we didn't need access to this. So if you expand that out into what we were as America, as isolationists, being able to manufacture and do everything in-house, we didn't need the rest of the world. The moment we exported all of our industry outside of the US, now we became reliant on the world. So what Donald Trump is doing is, I mean, it's a true patriotic it's a true patriotic move. I mean, this man has so much love for the country to do what he's doing that it's all inspiring, because what's going to end up happening is we're going to end up at a point to where all of our resources are going to be extracted from America, all in the name of equality, trying to help somebody else. But in the end, when you're helping somebody else, it the economic benefit doesn't pass down to the people that it's intended for. It's really the elite, liberal elite, that end up taking the bulk of that, those resources. Um, and that's why they push it. You know, they only push equality because there's an economic benefit to it. If there was no economic benefit to it for the liberal elite, they wouldn't push it. So tariffs, and what Trump is trying to do with tariffs and forcing everybody to say, hey, if you want to do business with America, there is a cost associated with that, a premium cost associated with that now, because we're no longer going to sit here and participate in this concept of equality when in the end, we're the ones as America getting, you know, the bad end of the deal every single time. You know, I've been saying I've been saying lately that, you know, I look at America, you know, the world looks at America as that rich friend that you only invite out because you know he's going to cover the bill, right? So you only invite him out to dinner, or you only invite him out for outings because you know he's a generous man and he's just going to pay the bill, right? The bill comes, you guys sit down, you guys go to, let's say it's a group of you guys always invite him out for lunch or dinner. The bill comes around and you guys, you know, it just sits on the table because you wait for him to reach out for it first, because you know he's going to pull out his card and just pay for it. Hey guys, yeah, just like him being around you. You know, the only reason why they invite him out, they have not once did anybody ever say, hey, you know what? Why don't we split this today? Or, you know, why don't we split it and you don't pay, the rest of us will pay? Or why doesn't somebody else pick up the bill? They don't want to do that because they're really not your friend. They only invite you around because they know you're going to pay the bill. You know, they like to take you out to the club because, you know, you're buying all the shots. That's how I see, that's how the rest of the world sees America, in my opinion. The rich friend that nobody really wants to hang out with, but they only invite him out because they know he's going to treat for the evening. And enough is enough. Enough is enough of that, because what ends up happening is you get taken advantage of. And the moment you get taken advantage of, you end up losing everything. So what Donald Trump and the administration is trying to do with tariffs, I'm all for. You know, it is really about making America great again. And actually, by the way, this is some new merch that I do want you guys to support my store now. Once again, my primary business is printing. So all of this is actually done in-house with my staff, my own team. I have Make America Will Be Great Again apparel. The link will be in my YouTube channel here. But, you know, support it, buy it. We'll ship it out to you. But this is some of the new gear that I'm rocking, and this has been, you know, a reason why I've been busy lately, just trying to produce a lot of this stuff and get it out. But with that all aside, you know, this is just a little rant I want to go on and just really just dive into why what Trump is doing is all inspiring. And I wish somebody would have done that years ago, you know, pre-civil rights. You know, once again, I'm not trying to get into this any racial inequality um, uh, talk here, but I just want to just kind of use that as an example. That's where we're going to actually end up, right? Because the black community went from a very prosperous community, you know, all the way from the 1930s up to the 1960s. And when civil rights came along, all of that wealth that we generated through our own economy, it got wiped out. It literally got wiped out. We were a economic monolith with the most millionaires per capita in that time frame than ever before. We don't even have that today. And if you want, that's more of a microcosma. Now, if you take it to a macro level, that's going to be America, right? We were the richest we were in the 1930s because we were self sustained. We were isolationists. We had captains of industry, people building, manufacturing, innovating, right? And then NAFTA, free trade, globalism came along and said, you know what? Let's spread the wealth, right? Through equality, let's spread the wealth. And what ends up happening? We export all of our jobs, manufacturing offshore. Now there's no such thing as a readily employment. You know, you can't get out and get readily available employment. Back in the day, you can go get a job anywhere, whether you want to go to school and do something more technical, or if you want to do something more labor oriented or trades oriented. We don't have that anymore. And what we're doing is bringing all of that back, bringing all of that back where you can now, right out of high school, go get a decent paying job, start a family if you want, and be able to take care of yourself. Those are the good days. That's when America was great again, right? And it's time to get back to those types of days because another 5, 10 years, if Trump wasn't in office, I'm literally afraid to see where this country would end up, right? But once again, I just want to share that my thoughts. Let me know what you think if I'm on point with my topic there. Leave your comments down below. Please like, subscribe, and share. Still trying to grow this channel. I'll be a little bit more active moving forward. Um, Sorry to just jump in the way I do, but am busy. And I thank you guys for watching and supporting this channel. Once again, take a look at some of the merch on the website if you're interested in purchasing it. The link will be in my YouTube channel or in the comments or chat in this video here. Thank you.